Good day, everyone. It's Chef P. We're making mac and cheese today, baked mac and cheese, that is. And today we're going to be putting edamame beans in ours, which are little soybeans. But you could adapt it in any which way that you see fit too. Lobster has a great home in baked mac and cheese, as does bacon, ham, even little cooked shrimps. Almost anything you can think of, you can adapt with this recipe. About this recipe, we're using a mother sauce. We're using the Béchamel mother sauce. And the reason that I choose this recipe is so that I can show you how to make a proper Béchamel. And we're adding cheese to that Béchamel sauce, which is going to be the base of our baked mac and cheese. Okay, so let's take a look at our mise en place today. Our thickening today will be a roux of butter and flour. Okay, so we're going to be thickening our milk with that roux. We're also going to need macaroni or a small pasta of some type. We're using Parmesan cheese and breadcrumbs for the topping. And we're going to be using old cheddar cheese today. Okay, not old because it's been in your fridge for a while, but old cheddar cheese has a sharper flavor than something like mild or something. But if you have other marble or Gouda or Havarti or anything in your fridge, you can always use that as well. And here are the edamame beans that we're going to be using here as well. So we're going to be pre-cooking those. All right, so let's take a look at the oven. We're going to preheat that oven to 400. We're not going to use convection bake because we have a topping on there. We don't want to burn the top. So leave the convection out, just go with a straight bake. And I'm boiling some water here, which I'm going to salt, and that's going to be for my pasta. This comes together quite quickly. We don't need to chop anything unless there's something that we want to add to it when we make it. So let's go to our preparation. Okay, so we don't have any cutting to do today, which is great, unless we wanted to add garlic or something like that. But today, with what I'm doing, we're not going to do that. So the only prep we really need to get going is we need to grate this cheese. We also need to cook our edamame beans. So I'm gonna put some water in here, maybe up to there. I really just want to steam these edamame. Okay, so this is, you can get them frozen like this. Sometimes they've already in the husk. These ones are already out, which keeps it nice and easy. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to that. So about a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to pour these in. So I've got about a cup and a half here. You can do whatever you want there. And again, like I said, this isn't in the recipe. This is just something that I'm adding, but I want to cook those first. So basically, we're going to cook everything, bring it together, put it into a casserole, and then put it into the oven and bring it up to get it bubbling, and then brown that nice topping, and that'll be delicious. I'm going to put this on the stove top. Going to grate this cheddar cheese. Okay, and again, I want to use this larger size here. Be careful not to grate your fingers. We're trying to keep this vegetarian. That's a joke, by the way. So there we go. That's it. So as I get closer to the ends, I'm just going to take my time and not grate those fingers. All right. So basically, that concludes the prep. Okay, now we're going to build the sauce and boil our pasta and bring this all together. All right, we'll see you at the next view. So now we're going to build our bechamel. Okay, so our bechamel, so it's B accent aigu C-H-A-M-E-L, bechamel. And that is a mother sauce, okay? And it's a creamy white sauce, and we can do lots of different things to them. A little bit of white wine, some Dijon, and some sliced onions, and now you've got yourself a Robert sauce, right? So it just changes that way. We add cheese, it becomes a cheese sauce. So it's a nice base sauce, and we're gonna start that process here by warming up our pan, our saucepan. And into that saucepan, I'm going to put my butter in. Okay. And that's, we've got, I think, 4 tablespoons there. And I've got about a 1/4 cup of flour. They should be roughly in the same amounts. Okay, so what we typically do in commercial kitchens is just equal amounts, and you'll see that that'll give you a nice roux. Okay, so I'm starting to melt that. You can see that the butter's melting. I don't want to go too high a heat. This will be a white sauce, so just like our soup a little while ago, the cheddar soup that we made, we basically made a white roux. And we're doing the exact same thing here today. We don't really want any color. We want our sauce to be white. And then when we add our cheddar cheese, that's going to give it an orange tinge. Okay, and again, this is way better than anything you're going to get out of a box. So you're going to need a wooden spoon. And as I melt this, okay, I can break this up a little bit. So just to show you what I'm doing here, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm taking that butter and I'm just sort of breaking it up so that it melts nicely. Once I've got it melted, I don't want it bubbling or anything like that. I'm looking at about a medium heat right now. And sometimes when I warm up the pan, I'll go to high and then drop it down a little bit. But I don't want any browning, okay, at all. So I'm going to pour in that flour. And I'm going to start to blend that out, and it makes kind of a little paste. In the meantime, I've still got over here, I've got my water coming to a boil for my pasta. I've got my edamame beans that are getting steamed, okay, they're coming up to that point. They should steam for about 4 minutes, and then I'll take them off. I'll drain them and just keep them aside, keep them warm so that I can add them to my stuff. This, if you do it all nice and warm and hot, you can just pop it into the oven, and as soon as it starts to bubble, you can take it out. You can also prepare this in advance, put it in the fridge or even freezer, and then use it on another day. Okay, so even if you want to make a big batch today and then sort of, you know, chill them out for other times, perfect. All right. So what we've got here, and we want to cook this roux out a little bit, but this is what it sort of looks like. Okay, so it's kind of like a paste. And I'm going to continue to bring that around like that. There we go. Now, what I'm finding is that, first of all, okay, my edamames have reached the boil, which is wonderful, so I'm going to turn those down. In most of the cooking that we do, you really don't need a lid, okay? So if you remember when we were making stocks or making soups, there's no need to put that lid on. When you're cooking pasta, don't put the lid on. The only time you want to use the lid is if you want to bring it up to the boil quickly, and then once it starts to reach that boil, that simmer, get rid of the lid. You don't need it anymore, okay? Which is exactly what I'm going to do for the edamame. Now, my roux looks like it could probably use just a little bit more flour. And when I measured this, you can measure it exactly if you want to. I used my chef measurements, which meant my eyes. So I'm just going to add a little bit more flour. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to add that. Very good. Just looking for a little bit thicker consistency, and I'll show you what that looks like. Beautiful. All right. So you can see it's a little bit thicker now. Okay, so it should be still kind of runny, but I want it to start cooking, and you'll start to see the edges will start to turn white, which is exactly what we want to have happen here. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Okay, and that's just my water waiting for my pasta. That pasta will take about, I'd say probably 7-8 minutes, and we're looking for al dente, but a little under al dente because we're going to bake this a little bit longer. Don't cook them mushy. If you cook these noodles mushy, your whole thing's just going to be a mess. So always with pasta, never overcook it. Always go to al dente, which means to the tooth. Okay, so it just means that you can just kind of bite through it. And we're going just a little under that because we know we're going to bake it longer. All right, so this has started to turn, it's starting to get little white edges, so my roux is starting to cook out, which is beautiful. Okay, so you can kind of see, there we go. Do you have light there? Yeah, not too bad. We're gonna cook a little bit more. And then the beauty here is that I'm using a hot roux right now, and lucky for me, my milk is cold. So if you recall when we talked about making the soups, that a hot roux, only cold liquids can go in because it blends a little bit better, and you can do the reverse, so you can have a hot liquid go into a cold roux. But if they're both the same temperature, sometimes they don't come together very, very nicely. So we're in a good spot here, and we're going to start doing that. You start getting this nutty flavor, and it starts to bubble a little bit, and you start to see the roux turn white. But we want to be careful because we don't want to go into amber territory. We don't want to go into dark territory. And amber roux would be used to make veloutes, which are typically a thickened stock. Okay, so like a veal stock, a chicken stock could be a chicken veloute as well. You might use that to make like a chicken pot pie or something like that. And we're not doing that. We're just looking for a milk sauce. We want it nice and white, and we are really there. Okay, so that's beautiful, and it smells nutty and buttery and very, very nice. Here's the other thing. If you don't have butter and you want to use margarine, you can also do that. You could also do it with oil too. Not quite as nice, but you could do it with animal fats as well. So if you were making a beef stock that you were thickening up, you could use beef fat to do that. All right, so I'm going to take this off the heat a little bit, just for a second. I'm going to put this on a board, okay, just so I'm not putting it on my counter. And I'm just going to start the process by adding a little bit of milk. That's it. And then I'm going to start stirring it. I'm going to bring it back to the heat. And I'm going to keep stirring it till it all becomes uniform. And all that liquid goes away. Okay, so you can see it like that. Okay, so it looks like it's doing that. We're going to continue to add a little bit at a time because we want it to not cool it too bad. And I'm going to stir, and I want to make sure that I stir it really well so that I get all the lumps out and that all the liquid sort of disappears. So I've done it again, and here we are, this stage. Continue. Now as I go on, I can add more and more liquid. And I'm going to keep doing that until I get the consistency that I want. And remember with a roux, that when you thicken, it has to kind of reach that boiling point to get that full thickening power that you're going to get from your roux. So here I go. Now I've added a little bit more. It's starting to look like mashed potatoes. So continue on. And this recipe calls for about 2 cups of milk, and I'm just going to eyeball it if that's okay with you guys, but yes, you can completely measure it out if you want to. And again, as that liquid goes in, you'll see it almost separated. It'll look like, oh my god, it's all lumpy and all nasty. But as I keep stirring, it gets better and better and better. Okay, so now you're starting to see, starting to look a little bit thicker. I want it thinner than that, so I'm going to add some more milk. Now with a mac and cheese like this, you can take it anywhere you want to go. You could even add some different curries to it and chicken and stuff, and you could really change it in some really cool way. And you know, they often have competitions with chefs on, you know, who can sort of make a whole new mac and cheese, and that's always fun to think about. All right, so I'm getting thicker and thicker. I want it to be a little bit thinner. That's it. And then I'm going to start to keep my eye on the temperature, because what I want to do is I want to bring it up to a light simmer, but I don't want to burn this, I don't want to scorch it, but I want to make sure that I cook out all that flour so it doesn't have a pasty flavor when you eat it. Okay, so here we go. Now this is looking pretty good. It's coating the spoon a little bit more than I'd like to, so I'm going to thin it out a little bit, and I also know that it's going to thicken a little bit more as it cooks. And when I put my cheese in, then it will also do the same thing. So, a note about the cheese. Like the cheddar broccoli, you don't boil your cheese in your sauce. That cheese goes in and just melts through. And that's what we want it to do. Okay? So, looking good. Okay, you can't really see it, but you can kind of see the consistency. And that's a base mother sauce. It's a bechamel sauce. And this can be used to do so many different things. Okay, or even used on its own. And in French cooking, you'll often see, a bechamel can be used as a sauce for different dishes. Usually a light colored dish. All right, looks good. I'm gonna check the flavor. Okay, I don't have the second spoon, but I'm just gonna check it quick. I'm gonna get rid of this spoon. Okay, so good. All right, tasting kind of bland. Needs a little bit of help. I'm gonna give it a little bit of salt. That's it, and then a little bit of pepper as well. Ideally, a white pepper would be good, so you don't get too many specks in there. And then I've sort of reached the point. It tastes cooked out. It's tasting pretty good. I'm gonna drop this right down and to the point where it's actually off. And I'm going to start melting my cheese into it. Good. Okay, so also with a bechamel sauce, what they might do sometimes is they might add a little bit of a flavoring agent, and what they'll do with that, the way that they do that is they'll take something called an oignon clouté, which just means a nailed onion, and they will take a half onion, cut it in half like that. Obviously a half onion will be cut in half. And what they'll do is they'll take a bay leaf and they'll put a clove and jam in that bay leaf, throw the whole thing in there, and it just gives it a really, really nice flavor. Onion works very, very well with a bechamel sauce. Okay, so gives a good flavor. If not, you could also put a little bit of nutmeg in here. Nutmeg's also very, very good. And like I said too, if you want to kick it up and go, give it sort of an East Indian feel, you could do that. You give it a sort of Mexican twist and do that. And so now you can see there's my orange sauce. So I'm gonna take that sauce, I'm gonna move it over to the side, and I'm actually gonna put a lid on it because I don't want it to grow skin and I want to preserve some of that heat. So I'm just gonna put that over here and then pop that lid on. And my edamame beans seem to be done. I'm gonna throw my pasta in, so why don't I do that with you guys. I'm going to move to this burner here. And throw my pasta in. But before I do that, anytime you cook pasta, always salt in the water. And I like to put a couple tablespoons in there. Okay, flavors that pasta from within. Also going to take these edamame beans. I'll drain those in a second. And depending on how much you want to make, here I've probably got 2 full cups here. And just in your head, know that they're probably going to be twice the size by the time it's cooked. Okay, so as soon as your pasta goes in there, always give it a good stir. That's it. Okay, and we're looking for full heat here. We want to bring it to a full boil. All right, I'm going to let this cook. And then I'm gonna have you back once I get these drained, and we'll assemble the casserole and get it in the oven. All right, guys, so the pasta is ready. It's good, and it shouldn't be huge now, okay? So if you've overcooked it, it's all splitting apart and all bad and stuff. So here we go, we're gonna pour that out. And I'm pouring it into a colander, okay? So I'm doing that. And what I'm going to try to do is once that colander is done, even though it hasn't drained 1000%, I'm just going to let some of that pasta water go in. Okay, so I've drained it, but it's a wet drain. Okay, so I've got that over here, and I want that because I want some of that pasta water to continue to mix in with my sauce, which will flavor my sauce a little bit, and it'll also help to sort of bring it all together. So that's what I've done. I've drained it, but just kind of wetting back in. All right, then I'm gonna take my edamame beans, okay, which are all nice and cooked here. So here's my pasta in there, and I'm just using this to mix it all together. I'm gonna throw that in there. And then my sauce. Okay, so here's my cheese sauce. I'm just gonna pour that in there. I'm gonna save a little bit. Let me see if I really need it all. And maybe I'll save that for some broccoli on another day. See, that wouldn't be so bad. You put it into the fridge, and then you could warm it up, and just add a little bit of milk to thin it out as you warm it up, and boom, you could use it for broccoli or any other thing. Or you could kick it up with some spicy, some jalapenos and things like that, and then use it as a sort of a nacho cheese dip too. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this up. Yeah, it's looking kind of good. Hey, oh yeah. And some of that sauce, and you can see it. See how it's all nice and coated, and it should look heavily coated. If you like a little bit more, then you can totally put more sauce in, but I think we're in pretty good shape here. And I might just add some to the top as I put it into the casserole. So let's move this to the side. This is the casserole dish I'm going to use. I hate scrubbing, especially baked on cheese. So I'm a big fan of parchment paper. So I'm gonna put that in there and sort of poke it down in here. It just makes cleaning a cinch, man, and that's what we like. So take this stuff here. And again, remember, you could do some pretty amazing things with this. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to add a little bit more sauce right now. Just a wee bit. And then I'll keep the rest for the top. Beautiful. Yeah, so remember, you could put chicken in here, bacon, ham, lobster, shrimp. I mean, you could do almost anything. Seems to be edamame's pretty popular in this household, so that's what we're doing today. Edamame are just soybeans, just in case you're wondering. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm going to smooth this over. Okay, just so you can see. That's it. I'll do that. And I might just, you know what, I might add a little bit of salt. Well, actually, that's all pretty much all that's left here. So maybe I'll just little bits more. Maybe not all of it, but another little bit here. There we go. Then on top of that, what I want to do is I've pre-measured out my breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese, and I'm just going to layer them like so. Trying to get all the edges as well. Like that. Finish off the rest of the cheese here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. And then just the balance of the breadcrumbs here. Like that. All right. So that's my casserole dish. So I could put this in a container, freeze it, do it some other day. Okay, so if you're one of these people who gets a little stressed when you have to make dinner and you're not too sure how that's all going to go, you pre-make it, you save yourself a lot of headache, and then you just basically thaw it out and bake it. Okay, or you can put this in the fridge and then just put it in later on, or you can put it in right now, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll just show you the end product as I pull it out. That should spend about 25 minutes, I would say, in the oven at 400. And once you start getting bubbling and you start getting some browning on the top, you're good to go. Also, if you don't even want to do this step and you don't want to bake it, you could totally just eat it out of the pan like that, right? Wouldn't be a problem. All right, so we'll see you in a couple of minutes when I bake this off. Okay, so I've just pulled it out of the oven. I've got bubbling all along the sides. I've got some browning on the top. I don't know if I can show you without wrecking it, but there it is. Okay, and all I wanted to just show you, not that I'm going to show you how to serve, but especially with a baked mac and cheese, if you're trying to serve it, you want that nice topping to show up. So what I typically do is I sort of cut out the shape that I want, and then I try to scoop from the bottom this way. And then when I put it on the plate, I try to let that topping sit right on the top. Okay, so that it looks something like that. So it doesn't look like it was a big mess or anything. You want it to be as pretty as possible. So hopefully up here, and then just scoop it back out, and then you've got all the topping on the top. Okay, that's it. Anyways, hopefully that inspires you to adjust the recipes and try to make something cool with that. Today we added edamame. You could absolutely add chicken, ham, bacon, lobster, whatever. You can kick it up in so many different ways. Anyways, have a good time. See you.